Welcome to the inspiring journey of a woman who once felt shattered after her divorce, but rose up stronger to become the most seductive version of herself. If you're in your 50s or 60s and feel overlooked or have lost your confidence, this story is for you. Today, I'm going to share how I transformed my heartbreak into power, using 5 simple yet powerful steps to become a woman who not only captivates on the outside but shines brightly from within. This isn't magic. It's practical wisdom I've lived and proven. Are you ready to walk with me on this path of self-discovery, reigniting your inner fire of confidence and seduction? Let's begin right now. They told me it was over. That at my age, after everything I'd been through, I was done. Invisible. Forgotten. Like a story nobody cared to finish. When the divorce papers landed on the table, it felt like the ground beneath me cracked open and swallowed everything I believed in, my marriage, my future, my worth. Suddenly I was alone. Not just physically alone, but completely unmoored. Lost in a silence so loud it screamed. I remember the nights best. Those long, endless nights where every shadow in the room seemed to whisper all the things I thought I'd left behind. I'd lie awake, heart pounding, mind racing with a million questions that had no answers. Was I still desirable? Was I still lovable? Did anyone see me anymore? The reflection in the mirror felt like a stranger staring back. The woman I once was, vibrant, full of dreams and laughter, seemed buried under years of compromise, disappointment, and pain. No one warned me that divorce at this stage in life wouldn't just break a marriage, but would shatter the identity I'd spent decades building. The world suddenly looked different. Colder, harsher, filled with doors closing where windows had once been wide open. Friends offered polite sympathy, but I could feel their discomfort too, as if my heartbreak made them uneasy, reminded them of their own fears of aging and loneliness. I wasn't just losing a partner. I was losing my place in a world that seemed to have no space left for me. For weeks, maybe months, I drifted. I let the pain swallow me whole. I wore my sadness like a heavy coat, dragging myself through days that blended into each other with no color, no spark. I told myself this was how it had to be, that this was my new normal, the end of the story. But deep down, something refused to die. A flicker, faint and fragile but stubbornly alive. A whisper inside, reminding me that the chapters weren't finished. That even in the darkest nights there could be dawn. One evening, as the rain tapped softly against the window pane, I sat curled in a chair, clutching a cup of tea I couldn't seem to drink. My eyes caught sight of an old photograph on the mantelpiece. Me years ago, radiant and confident, with a mischievous smile that lit up the room. I didn't recognize the woman in the picture, but I wanted to. I wanted that spark back. I wanted to feel alive again. And then, almost like a challenge, a question pushed itself to the surface. What if I could? What if this wasn't the end but a beginning? What if I could take the broken pieces of who I was and rebuild? Not as someone lesser, but as someone new, powerful, irresistible. The idea was terrifying and thrilling. I started small. First, it was just little things. Choosing an outfit that made me feel good instead of comfortable. Looking in the mirror and daring to smile at myself. Allowing myself to dream again, even if just a little. But the more I tried, the more I realized something unexpected. This wasn't just about looking good on the outside. It was about awakening something inside. A deep, burning confidence that said, I am still here. I am still worth everything. I won't pretend it was easy. There were days I wanted to give up. Nights I felt defeated by my own reflection. But every time I stumbled, I reminded myself why I started. I wasn't doing this for anyone else. Not for a new partner, not to prove anyone wrong. I was doing it for me. To reclaim my power, my joy, my life. And slowly, step by step, something incredible began to happen. I felt myself shifting, changing. Not just in how I looked, but in how I carried myself, how I spoke, how I moved through the world. I became a woman who could walk into a room and command attention. Not because I shouted the loudest, but because I radiated an energy that was magnetic and real. The world began to see me differently. Strangers offered smiles that lingered a little longer. Old friends reached out with renewed warmth. And yes, there were moments, secret, stolen moments, when I caught someone's gaze lingering on me, eyes filled with admiration or curiosity. It felt intoxicating, like rediscovering a power I'd forgotten I had. But here's the truth no one tells you. Becoming this woman, this seductress, wasn't about chasing youth or beauty. It was about embracing every scar, every wrinkle, every story etched into my skin. It was about knowing my worth wasn't tied to anyone else's approval. It was about owning my desires, my sensuality, my confidence, my fire without apology. I discovered that seduction is an art. Not just in the way you dress or the way you move, but in the way you carry your soul. It's in the quiet strength of a glance, the slow curl of a smile, the soft yet unwavering tone of your voice. It's in the way you listen, the way you laugh, the way you let yourself be vulnerable and powerful all at once. And believe me, after years of hiding behind roles and expectations, stepping into that power felt like breathing for the first time. But how did I get there? What were the steps that transformed me from a broken woman into someone irresistible? What secrets did I uncover along the way? Secrets that every woman over 50 deserves to know. I'm not going to give you the answers all at once. This journey isn't a quick fix, and it's not a fairy tale. It's raw, it's real, and it's waiting for you to take the first step. So if you've ever felt invisible, or wondered if the best years of your life are behind you, listen closely. Because what I'm about to share could change everything. The truth is, heartbreak was only the beginning. And this story, it's far from over. After those long dark nights filled with doubt and fear, something inside me began to stir. A quiet, persistent voice refusing to be silenced. It was a whisper at first, barely audible beneath the weight of loneliness and regret. But day by day it grew stronger, pulling me toward a truth I hadn't dared to face before. I was still here. I was still alive. And most importantly, I still had the power to choose who I wanted to be. You see, the moment I stopped blaming myself, the moment I stopped thinking I was broken beyond repair, was the moment everything began to change. It wasn't some sudden epiphany. It was a slow unraveling of lies I'd believed for far too long. Lies that said I was too old, too damaged, too irrelevant. Lies that told me my time to shine had passed. But what if those lies weren't true? What if my life was just entering its most exciting chapter? That's when I made a promise to myself. A promise to stop waiting for someone else to save me, and start saving myself. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I knew there would be days when I felt weak, when the past tried to pull me back into its shadows. But I also knew that real transformation demands courage. Courage to face the truth. Courage to embrace vulnerability. Courage to step into the unknown. So I began to learn. Not just about makeup or clothes, although yes, I started exploring those too, but about something far deeper, my own mind and heart. I devoured books about self-love and confidence, about the psychology of attraction, about how women can reclaim their sensuality at any age. I listened to podcasts where women my age shared their stories of reinvention, and slowly I pieced together a new belief system. One where I was the heroine of my own story, not the victim. One of the most powerful lessons I learned was this. Confidence isn't about perfection. It's about authenticity. It's about standing tall in your own skin, with all your flaws and strengths, and knowing that you are enough, more than enough. And when you own that truth, the world can't help but notice. But belief alone wasn't enough. I realized that to truly transform, I had to take action. Real action. The kind that scares you, that pushes you beyond comfort zones. So I started small, with tiny steps that felt manageable but meaningful. I made an appointment with a hairstylist and asked for a bold new cut. Something that felt alive and fresh. I spent time rediscovering my wardrobe, choosing pieces that made me feel sexy and confident, not just appropriate. I signed up for a dance class. Yes, me dancing in front of strangers, and found a freedom and movement I hadn't felt in years. Each small act was a declaration. I am here. I am worthy. I am desirable. But perhaps the biggest leap was learning to flirt again. Not just with others, but with life itself. To smile at strangers, to hold eye contact longer, to let my laughter fill a room without apology. Felt electric, almost addictive. And then there were moments, unexpected and thrilling. When a man's gaze lingered just a little too long. When a stranger struck up a conversation in a cafe. When I caught myself feeling not fear but excitement. It was as if I had stepped through a secret door, into a world where I was no longer invisible but irresistible. Yet, this wasn't about chasing men or seeking validation. It was about embracing my own power to create connection, passion, and joy. About knowing that my desires, sensual, emotional, and spiritual, mattered. Looking back, I see now that those first steps, uncertain and shaky as they were, set me on a path I could never have imagined. A path that led me from heartbreak to empowerment, from invisibility to seduction, from pain to pleasure. But this is only the beginning. The real transformation came when I discovered the 5 steps that would change everything. The blueprint for becoming a seductress after divorce, after 50, after all the doubts and scars. I'm going to share those steps with you. But before that, I want you to understand something essential. This journey is deeply personal. What worked for me might not be exactly the same for you. But the principles, the courage, the self-love, the willingness to embrace change, they're universal. So as we move forward together, I invite you to open your heart, quiet your doubts, and imagine what it would feel like to reclaim your power. To light that fire inside and let it burn bright. Because believe me, it's possible. And the best part? Starts from within. In the quiet moments of my transformation, I began to realize that seduction wasn't just about how I looked or how others saw me, it was about how I saw myself. That realization became a turning point. For years, I had allowed the judgments of the world, and worse, my own harsh inner critic, to define me. But if I wanted to become the woman I dreamed of being, I had to start rewriting that story. I started by asking myself honest questions. What do I really want? What makes me feel alive? What parts of myself have I hidden away, afraid to show? These questions were uncomfortable at first, stirring up emotions I'd long buried. But they were necessary, because real healing begins with truth. One night, after a particularly long day, I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. I realized I had spent so many years playing roles, the dutiful wife, the devoted mother, the invisible woman, that I had lost sight of who I was beneath it all. I wanted to feel desire again, to awaken a passion not just for romance but for life itself. So I made a choice, to explore those desires without shame or hesitation. That meant embracing my sensuality in ways I never had before. I learned that sensuality isn't about youth or perfection. It's about connection to your body, your senses, your emotions. It's the way a touch lingers, the warmth of a smile, the spark in your eyes when you truly feel alive. I started practicing self-care with intention. Not just skincare routines or pretty clothes, but moments of quiet indulgence where I honored myself. A warm bath scented with my favorite oils, a slow dance alone in my living room, a whispered affirmation of love to my reflection. These rituals became sacred, grounding me in my own worth. At the same time, I began to pay attention to my mindset. I noticed how easy it was to slip into negative self-talk. I'm too old. No one will want me. I don't deserve happiness. I realized these thoughts were lies, echoes of fear disguised as truth. I replaced them with affirmations that felt powerful and true. I am beautiful at every age. My worth is limitless. I am deserving of love and pleasure. It wasn't an instant change. Some days the doubts crept back in, clawing at my confidence. But with practice, I learned to catch those thoughts, challenge them, and choose a kinder, stronger narrative. Alongside this mental shift, I began to reconnect with my body in ways that surprised me. I walked taller, breathed deeper, moved with more grace. I discovered the intoxicating power of presence, how simply being fully in the moment can transform the energy you give off. And that energy, I learned, is magnetic. I found myself engaging more openly with others. Friends, new acquaintances, even strangers, sharing laughter and stories without fear of judgment. I flirted with life itself, allowing curiosity and playfulness to guide me. There was a thrill in reclaiming my voice, in saying yes to new experiences. Whether it was a spontaneous dinner with a friend, a late-night phone call, or a quiet moment of self-reflection, I felt more alive than I had in years. Of course, this journey wasn't without its shadows. Moments of loneliness, flashes of insecurity, reminders of the past. But I faced them with compassion, knowing they were part of my growth. I also discovered that seduction isn't about manipulation or pretense. It's about authenticity, showing up as your true self, with all your complexities and beauty. And as I embraced that truth, I began to notice something extraordinary. The men around me saw me differently. Not because I changed who I was, but because I changed how I felt about myself. Their eyes held respect, admiration, sometimes desire. But most importantly, I felt respected and admired by myself. This awakening was intoxicating and empowering. It filled me with a new kind of confidence, one rooted not in superficial things, but in the deep knowing of my value. And it's this confidence that became the foundation for the 5 steps I took to transform myself into the seductress I am today. Each step built upon the last, weaving together mindset, self-care, style, connection, and passion into a complete, radiant whole. I'm eager to share these steps with you, to guide you through your own journey of transformation. But for now, I want you to sit with this. Your sensuality, your confidence, your power, they have always been inside you, waiting to be awakened. You don't have to start from zero. You just have to take the first step. By the time I was ready to truly change, I understood that transformation is not a sudden leap, but a series of intentional steps. Small yet powerful moves that shift the way you see yourself and the way you live your life. And while the path may look different for everyone, the core principles I discovered can unlock a door to a new reality, one where confidence and seduction flow naturally from within. The first step I took was to reclaim my time and my space. For so long I had poured myself into others, my ex-husband, my children, my responsibilities, often neglecting the most important person in the equation, me. I began setting boundaries, gently but firmly, saying no to things that drained me, and yes to moments that nurtured my soul. This was revolutionary. Suddenly I had room to breathe, to explore, to dream. With that newfound space, I moved to the second step. Rediscovering my style. Not just fashion, but my personal expression. I stopped hiding behind baggy clothes and neutral colors. I embraced fabrics that felt sensual against my skin, colors that made my eyes shine, cuts that celebrated my curves instead of concealing them. It wasn't about impressing others. It was about delighting myself. Wearing something that made me feel alive sparked a subtle, irresistible energy that radiated outwards. The third step was a deep dive into self-care. Not as a luxury, but as a necessity. I created rituals that honored my body and spirit. Long baths, gentle skincare, nourishing meals, and yes, movement that felt joyful, not punishment. Each act was a reminder that I deserved tenderness, pleasure, and vitality. This care wasn't selfish. It was the foundation of my power. Step 4 challenged me to reconnect with my sensuality on an emotional and mental level. I learned to listen to my desires, to understand my body's language, and to shed the shame I'd carried for so long. This wasn't about seducing someone else. It was about seducing myself first. The flirtation with life, with my own pleasure, opened doors I hadn't even known existed. Finally, the 5th step was embracing connection, real, honest connection. I stopped shrinking in social settings and started showing up fully, with warmth and curiosity. Whether it was through a smile, a touch, or a whispered word, I let myself be seen and felt. This vulnerability, paradoxically, became my greatest strength and the essence of my seduction. Each of these steps, simple in theory but profound in practice, built a new woman from the ashes of my past. A woman who owned her story, her beauty, and her power. This transformation was not about pretending to be someone else. It was about peeling back the layers to reveal the authentic, radiant woman I'd always been beneath the surface. And here's the secret. These steps aren't just about attracting others. They are about falling in love with yourself all over again. When you do, the world responds in kind. If you think this sounds impossible, I promise you it's not. It takes patience, courage, and a willingness to be gentle with yourself on the hard days. But the rewards? They are beyond anything I imagined. Because when you reclaim your time, style, care, sensuality, and connection, you don't just become a seductress. You become a force of nature. When I look back at my journey from heartbreak to irresistible confidence, I realize that every great transformation begins with a single brave choice. The choice to put yourself first. For me, that choice unfolded in the form of my very first step. Reclaiming my time and space. It may sound simple, but its power is profound. For years, my life had been a relentless cycle of giving, to my ex-husband's needs, to the demands of family, to endless chores and obligations. I was so consumed by taking care of everyone else that I forgot to care for myself. My own desires were buried under layers of shoulds and musts. But after the divorce, in the quiet aftermath of loss, I realized that if I didn't start guarding my own energy, I'd never rebuild. So I began to set boundaries. At first, it felt almost revolutionary to say no. No to the friend who always drained my energy with her constant complaints. No to late-night phone calls that left me feeling anxious. No to endless errands that didn't truly matter. Saying no wasn't easy. It brought guilt, second-guessing, even loneliness. But each time I said it, I felt a small spark of power reignite inside me. I carved out time just for me. Sacred moments where I could breathe, think, and reconnect with myself. Morning walks, journaling sessions, quiet cups of tea without distraction. These pauses became my sanctuary. In this space, I began to hear my own voice again, free from the noise of others' expectations. Reclaiming my time wasn't about selfishness. It was about survival. It was the soil from which my new confidence would grow. The second step flowed naturally from this, rediscovering my style, my personal expression. Before, I hid behind baggy sweaters and muted tones, afraid to draw attention or feel vulnerable. Now, I wanted to dress not to please others, but to delight myself. To feel the brush of silk against my skin, the lift of a well-cut jacket that hugged my curves, the thrill of a deep, rich color that made my eyes sparkle. I remember the day I walked into a boutique I'd never dared to enter before. The walls were lined with clothes that seemed too daring, too young, too bold for someone my age. But something inside me whispered, "Try." So I did. I picked out a dress, simple yet sensual, a deep burgundy that complemented my skin tone. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was radiant, alive. Wearing that dress was like slipping into a new skin. It gave me a confidence I hadn't felt in years. I walked with a newfound grace, my shoulders back, my chin lifted. People noticed. Strangers smiled. Friends complimented. But the most important approval came from within. Rediscovering style was more than clothes. It was about reclaiming my identity, owning who I was now, not who I had been or who I thought I should be. It was an act of rebellion against invisibility. I started experimenting, soft blouses paired with leather pants, heels that clicked confidently on the pavement, lipstick shades that made me smile in the mirror. Each choice was a declaration. I am here. I am desirable. I am worthy of attention. And with each step, the fire inside me burned brighter. Together, these two steps, reclaiming time and reclaiming style, created a powerful foundation. They reminded me that I was no longer defined by my past, or by anyone else's expectations. I was the author of my own story, and I was writing it boldly. But let me be honest, these changes didn't happen overnight, and they weren't without struggle. Some mornings I still woke up wrapped in doubt. Some days I wanted to slip back into old habits, to disappear into comfortable routines that kept me safe but invisible. Yet, I kept returning to those moments of choice. To that voice inside urging me forward. To the vision of the woman I wanted to be. Confident, radiant, unapologetically alive. And slowly, step by step, I transformed. If you're listening to this now, maybe you're standing at a similar crossroads. Maybe you feel lost, invisible, or unsure if you still have what it takes to shine. I want you to know you do. The power is inside you, waiting to be awakened. Start with your time. Protect it fiercely. Make space for yourself in your own life. And then when you're ready, explore your style. Find the colors, fabrics, and shapes that make you feel alive and magnetic. These aren't superficial changes. They're the first moves on a dance floor that leads to your most authentic, seductive self. And I promise, once you start, you won't want to stop. After reclaiming my time and rediscovering my style, the journey took me deeper into the heart of self-care and sensuality. These weren't just about pampering or appearance. They were about reconnecting with my body, my emotions, and my deepest desires. This part of the transformation felt both vulnerable and exhilarating. Step 3 was about self-care. Not as an occasional treat, but as a daily act of honoring myself. For years I had neglected this. My needs, my comfort, my pleasure, all sacrificed on the altar of responsibility. But now, I learned that nurturing myself was the foundation of confidence and seduction. I began with small rituals. A nightly skincare routine that made me feel cherished, even radiant. A morning stretch that woke up my body gently, reminding me that every muscle, every breath was a gift. I cooked meals that nourished and delighted me, savoring flavors that made me feel alive. I even started dancing alone in my living room. Free, unjudged, joyful. Reconnecting with movement as a form of expression and freedom. But self-care was more than physical. It was also about mental and emotional nourishment. I started meditating, learning to quiet the anxious chatter in my mind. I journaled honestly, letting out fears and hopes. I surrounded myself with positive influences. Books, podcasts, people who lifted me up and inspired me. This consistent care rebuilt my self-worth from the inside out. I realized that when I treated myself with kindness and respect, I radiated a glow that others couldn't help but notice. It was magnetic. Step 4 was perhaps the most intimate, rediscovering my sensuality. This meant learning to listen to my body, to understand its signals, to embrace desire without shame or fear. It was about reclaiming pleasure as a natural, essential part of life, no matter my age. I remember the nervous excitement the first time I allowed myself to wear lingerie just for me, not for anyone else. The way the soft fabrics against my skin made me feel powerful and feminine. The way I looked at myself in the mirror, not with criticism but with appreciation and longing. I also explored the art of flirtation, not the desperate kind, but the playful, confident dance of connection. I learned how a glance, a smile, a soft word could convey confidence and warmth. I practiced making eye contact that lingered just long enough to spark curiosity and interest. Rediscovering sensuality meant embracing vulnerability, the courage to be seen, to be desired, to feel deeply. It meant shedding old beliefs that told me desire was only for the young or the perfect. It meant honoring my own body's wisdom and celebrating its beauty. This awakening was intoxicating. It gave me a new relationship with myself, one filled with tenderness, excitement, and pride. And it transformed how I moved through the world. More present, more alive, more magnetic. Together, self-care and sensuality created a powerful synergy. They nurtured my confidence and deepened my connection to myself and others. They reminded me that seduction is not about superficial tricks. It's about authenticity, presence, and the courage to claim your power. If you're listening and wondering where to start, I invite you to create your own rituals of care and moments of sensual delight. It doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. A warm bath, a favorite scent, a song that moves you. These small acts can awaken a world inside you. Remember, this journey is yours alone. But you're not alone in it. I'm walking it too, step by step, discovering new facets of myself every day. In the final part, I'll share the last step, embracing connection, and reveal how all 5 steps weave together to create a life of irresistible confidence and joy. The last step, the one that tied all the others together, was embracing connection. This wasn't just about meeting new people or dating again. It was about opening my heart to genuine, soulful interactions. It was about showing up fully, vulnerably, and authentically in every relationship, whether with friends, family, or someone new. For so long I had hidden behind walls of fear and self-doubt, afraid that if I revealed my true self, I would be rejected or hurt again. But I learned that real seduction is rooted in truth, the courage to be seen as you are, and to see others without judgment. I started by reaching out to friends I had drifted from, rekindling bonds with warmth and honesty. I allowed myself to laugh more freely, to listen more deeply, to share parts of my story I had kept locked away. I discovered the power of eye contact, a gentle touch, a sincere compliment. These small gestures built bridges and opened doors I thought were closed forever. When I stepped into the dating world again, it was with a new mindset. I wasn't looking for validation or to fill a void. I was looking for connection, meaningful, respectful, and joyous. And when I found it, it felt like a celebration, not a rescue. Through embracing connection, I realized that seduction isn't a performance. It's a dance between two souls who dare to meet honestly. And that dance, full of laughter, passion, tenderness, became one of the greatest gifts of my new life. Looking back, I see how these 5 steps transformed me. Reclaiming my time, rediscovering my style, honoring myself with care, awakening my sensuality, and embracing connection. Together, they rebuilt not just my confidence but my joy, my freedom, my sense of purpose. This journey taught me that it's never too late to become the woman you want to be. That heartbreak can be the fertile ground for rebirth. That seduction is a form of self-love, a celebration of your unique power. If you've stayed with me this far, I want you to know this: your story isn't over. You have the strength, the beauty, and the right to rewrite it every day. The woman you want to become is waiting inside you, ready to shine. So take a breath, take a step, begin your own transformation, because you deserve to live fully, love deeply, and be irresistibly you. Thank you for sharing this journey with me.